I see him typically 2 to 3 days a week and every other weekend. It's not really a set schedule because his mom works in retail, so the hours can be really difficult to work around. But I make the best out of him every time he's here. It's really, really tough not seeing him for those couple days in between because I was so used to coming home from work and waking him up in the morning, and I come home and I go straight to bed. It's a big change for me, and I'm having a hard time trying to handle that. But
I remember I was in labor for 36 hours, and many of those hours were spent going back and forth to the hospital as we weren't sure. And remember that?
Yeah, the first day, I remember bringing our son home. Was
Oh.
the main thing.
I'm sorry, but I can't get past the labor.
Yeah.
That's what I want to talk about.
we had actually got Popeyes, and we got spicy chicken Popeyes, and we really think that's what put her into labor. Literally, I would say maybe like an hour, 2 hours after she ate it, she was ready to go. So we sped off to the hospital. We drove from Pottstown all the way out to Paoli, which is a nice little hike. And we actually thought that it was going to be a no-go again, and then they said that we could stay. And she was fine all the way up until they had to break the water for her. And as soon as that happened, I never seen her in that amount of pain.
Yeah.
Although I do remember those last minutes before he was born. I remember that the pain was coming every minute, and the contractions were coming every minute. And between those contractions, both of us would just totally conk out and sleep. And if you can imagine your poor father putting his head down against a chair, falling asleep, and then having to jump up as my contraction began so that he could rub my back. The poor guy.
Yeah, I don't remember any pain, but
And then it was time to go, and it was one of the craziest experiences of my entire life, I'll tell you that. It was a mix of nasty, but a mix of beauty at the same time. And the nurses were so good with her and everything like that, and they kept asking me if I wanted to see the head. I wasn't ready for that yet. That was just a tease for me. And then when he finally took his first breath, that was the most breathtaking thing for me. I never knew what love at first sight was until I saw my little boy for the first time.
It's amazing what you become aware of, what you do
I think
yourself.
maybe it's not so much fear, but more of an awareness and a concern, if nothing else, a real concern that I can't mess this one up. That had long-ranging implications. So just the fact that you don't know what you're doing is pretty obvious. And
We did talk a lot about that, didn't we? About giving him complexes. Oh no, he's going to get a complex or something.
Definitely the biggest scare for me is who he's going to be around when he gets older. I know luckily for me, my parents set me on a straight path where I knew to stay away from the certain people that were bad influences in my life. But I know sometimes people just can't get away from them or can't escape the demons that may follow them. But I know that the best way to teach him is the way my parents taught me, and to instill good values. And I'm trying to do the best I can to do that for him, so he knows whether to say yes or whether to say no at the correct times.
your father has strong interests, and that always impressed me. But he always had strong interests, and he, at least as far as I knew him, and he knew which direction he wanted to go. By the time we met, he already had a job, and he already had he was just getting his master's degree, and then after we were married, after you were born even, he went to get his PhD, so to further his education. And since he's so fascinated with his field, he's so, eager to go to work.
I provide for my son. I work at a company called East Penn Manufacturing, or it's also known as DECA. They make industrial batteries for cars, buses. They made batteries for Humvees in the military. Literally any big type of battery, we make it.
We knew that we'd do whatever it took to get ahead. It wasn't an issue, really.
Money was very tight for a while because I was an at-home mom, and losing that income was difficult because we lost my income, bought our very first house, and had our first child all in the same year. And that was rough. We could do it because your father had a good job. But it was tight.
I work around a lot of chemicals and a lot of carcinogens, arsenic being one of them, and I work around a lot of acid too. And lead. Lead's a big thing in my department too, so I have to wear a respirator a lot, which kind of makes me nervous sometimes too, because lead is a terrible metal that can kill you. And I just have to double check to make sure I wash up before I come home and see my little boy.
Listen to the advice that people give you. Listen to all of it. But ultimately make your own decision based on your own instincts towards your child, because only you know.
Definitely be around your son as much as possible, and lead by a good example. Don't do things around your son you don't want him to do.
The advice would be to not miss anything, to always be there, even when you don't want to be. And you'd rather be somewhere else maybe. But if you always project forward, your forward self looking back, and what would you want to have happen? It's not a guilt thing. It's just you're not guilting yourself into doing it. You're reminding yourself of what's important. And yeah, I mean that's kind of advice that I would take.